Welcome back to League of Inches podcast. The round, here we are. Footy is back. How good is it? I basically would just want to say, first of all, what the actual fuck was that? Because the tipping was a disgrace. Supercoach was a disgrace.
Hang on.
Fantasy was.
Stop your intro for a second. I got 5 out of 8.
Hey.
I got 5 out of 8. I was pretty happy with 5 out of 8.
I was 2-0.
Yeah, so was I. And then I got 5. What'd you get?
What'd
you finish with?
I think 3.
Sorry, Joe. We completely derailed you here. But look, I tried to tip smart and tip Newcastle for the first time in about 6 years. And that cost me. Like, we all knew I wanted Canberra to win. Not going to hide it. Even though I told you I thought the Warriors would struggle, I still tipped them. Like, so I kind of saw that one coming. But like I said, that last game today, you didn't know which way it was going to go, did you? Like, it was the hardest game of the round to tip. So I'm pretty happy with 5 out of 8, but I would have been happy with 6 out of 8 as well. Stupid fucking Newcastle. Anyway, continue, Joel. Sorry, back to it.
I think you take the early lead in the League of Inches tipping comp that we post out each week. So good work there. Yeah, pretty much how good is footy. The intro's over. We're just getting straight into it. That's what round one does to us. We just want to get straight into things. I'm going to throw it to Jez straight away, who's come off a huge weekend. Obviously, very, very disappointing. Thursday does seem like a long time ago. But unfortunately, I guess for a Knights fan, it pretty much probably seems like yesterday still. Run us through your thoughts, Jez, about the game. I think Adam wants to have a quick pot shot.
He's still red. Are you still angry or what?
I'm still fuming. This definitely isn't sunburn.
Can you notice a bit of a demeanour change? Me and Joel at the back end of last year were just sitting like Jeremy is at the moment. And Jeremy was all up on his, now we're just like, and Jeremy's like, I fucking hate footy.
Well, 10 in a row will do that for you. But, mate, it was so sad. There was 23,000 fans there on a Thursday night. I went straight from soccer training thinking I was going to be in for a really fun evening of rugby league, and boy, it turned on its head very quickly. I think I messaged the group and I said, do you know what, at the end of the game, do you know what Newcastle needed? More halves on the field. Because we just didn't have enough halves being hidden in the defensive line. It was abysmal. Like, the errors in the first half set the tone. Every time we got I don't think we completed a set. And if we did, we kicked it out on the full. We hit another kickoff out on the full. And then Jamal Fogarty just went, you know what? I'll show you guys how to play rugby league. Watch this. And he had a great game. And who's my mate? The fullback? Adam? We love him. Rapana, thank you. He had a great game as well. Kept his head.
You know why? He didn't do anything stupid, for the first time in his probably career.
And, just to rub salt into the wound, nearly every try scorer was a Knights junior. So, it was just all-round great rugby league for Knights fans. Mate, it was... Ponga tried his heart out. Gagai played pretty well. Frizzell tried hard. Marju, again, just ate up the meters. But the errors, mate, they killed us. And Canberra, they were clinical. They did very well.
I'm glad that you mentioned about the juniors because I thought you were going to turn up to my door on Thursday night with that angry I mentioned it.
Oh, you know what? Mate. When they scored their second last try, I reckon about 15,000 people left. Just got up and left. They'd had enough.
But you could tell. You could hear the Viking clap going around McDonald Jones Stadium on TV.
And they deserved it. They were really good.
I want to highlight something as well. And I didn't send it through to you. I meant to send it through to you. There was a little picture that come from, it was on Twitter. And I don't know if we can post this. It was on the NRL roast today, but it was a sign in the Raiders shed and had made me see, like, they're trying to say it was about the spoon predictions, but it was a Raiders thing and it said, fuck 'em. And it was hanging in their sheds. It looked like it was heading above either Hudson Young or completely Zach Hoskins' shed there in the shed. Now, that obviously wasn't anything to do with the spoon for those playing at home. That was Newcastle juniors, and I did mention it to Jeremy, who was still very angry at the Newcastle system. And there's a bit of added motivation in that game for sure, the way they played.
The way that Hudson Young played, that was his mentality the whole game.
Yeah.
I'd love to have him on my team, the way he played tonight or Thursday night.
Well, you did have him on your team, and you made an example out of him seeing the Canberra.
Yeah, we got rid of him.
I don't want to be too harsh because it is round one. What I want to point out there is something that you touched on, Jez, in the halves. It just we spoke about a lot in the preseason. We couldn't really any of us could agree on the right way to do things. I think the week Thursday night showed more than ever. Cogger needs to be the number 7 for this football team, and just have Hastings and Gamble a shoot off because I get that you want to be loyal to the players who did it last year, but this is a whole brand new comp. Like what we've seen this week already, there's so many teams now that have improved, some teams that have gone backwards. You can't fully rely on what happened last year to do what happened, to do the right thing and get it done for you this year. It's not going to work. And you've got to go basically back to square one and earn the right to play footy again. I just thought the Newcastle Knights came out with a thought that they'd just come out as if it was last year still and just keep feeding off that and score off almost every set. And it was so frustrating because it looked like Frizzell, for instance, I think you mentioned it, he was playing so well. Like I was loving what I was seeing from Frizz, especially early on. And they just went away from it. Like if he was doing what he was doing on his edge, keep going there, keep smashing that. And then they just wanted to go out the back a lot and use their back line. Luckily, Gagai was having a good game, so it kept you somewhat in the game to do that. But I just thought the halves lost the plot a bit. Like Gamble, I've never personally been a huge fan of Gamble. I think he's actually a touch overrated, and I'll probably cop it from someone about saying that in the DMs. But I'll say it again and time and time again. Cogger did it on the biggest stage in our game, the grand final. I don't know what else he needs to prove to the coach or to the playing group to suggest he can do it week in, week out. Give him the chance. He did it last year for Penrith when Cleary or Lua were down. He would come in. I know it's a different football team. Penrith are a different story, but he's been there and done it time and time again now over the last year. He's proved it. Give him the reins. Let him do what he needs to do.
I've got to be a bit careful here because I was walking through Green Hill Shopping Centre today and someone already referred to me as Willie Mason. I shout out Big Willie, and I'm used to copping that, but I know what it was about. But what it was about was me bagging at the Knights halves and calling him reserve grades. I know the bloke. When he shouted it out. Not that way. And,
thanks for listening.
I've called out Newcastle's halves for a while, and I'm not the only one. They have reserve grade halves, and whether they add Jack Cogger to that or not, it doesn't get better because there is not one half in that team that is capable of controlling a team. And me and Jeremy had a Friday morning debrief at about 8:30 in the morning already. But it's the truth. It's what I've been saying, and they didn't want to listen to me because they just think I had my hating Newcastle. And I fucking hate Newcastle. I actually do. Like everyone knows that. There's so much I don't like about the club, but I'll still
Thanks
call
for
it
the honesty.
Yeah, well, I don't need to lie. But exactly what I said would happen did happen. They have a really bad halves imbalance. When Cogger come on and played hooker and made it worse, they were looking for Ponga as another half, and then they had Kurt Mann at lock playing as a third, but it was technically a fifth half. When you have a hooker playing halfback, Jeremy's had enough. He is gone. He has walked away from his bagging. Obviously, off to deal with the kids, so that's fine.
And had Crosland on the field at the same time as well, so that was another one.
Yeah, 100%. So, don't worry, Jeremy. I'm glad you're back. We're still talking about the Knights halves. But what the Knights' biggest problem besides not finding that balance was, and you kind of touched on it, they didn't earn the right. It's a cliche. They didn't earn the right to play footy. Newcastle at the back end of last year, a lot like Parramatta in 2009. Another one you can add on is St. George in 2000. So not St. George. The Roosters in 2010 when they got beat by St. George. There's several teams over you can add to that. Those teams that make those late charge to the finals, when their season's done and dusted, they start to play razzle-dazzle football. And it's great in theory when you're playing for every week you're playing for your season. You can play that offload and stuff. It doesn't work in the early parts of the season in round one. The halves they had last year with the form that Ponga was in, and just to touch on that too, I thought Ponga actually played a pretty solid game. He just got wrapped up every time he had the ball, and they made it too easy for him. The halves were capable of that kind of style, but they're not capable of guiding and playing structured football. And that's when Newcastle are really going to struggle this year. They will start the year 0-4 now. It doesn't get any easier. They go to Townsville this week after the Cowboys were obviously pretty good. Well, it's hard to say how good they were because the Dolphins were ordinary. Then they've got Melbourne at home, and we saw what Melbourne's defense was like. Then they've got St. George, who I think, are going to surprise a few teams. And I think after that, Jammies at the Roosters at home. So that's 5 very hard games to start the year. And their run home isn't as easy.
I thought it was Warriors away.
Is there Warriors somewhere? Hang on. Yeah,
That's not any easier.
Yeah,
No.
it doesn't. That's Cowboys.
No, I'm agreeing with the 0-4 thing.
Yeah, sorry, you're right. It's Warriors away, then it's Dragons. So that's why I said 0-4. Then they've got the Dragons, 0-5. But after they play the Dragons in round 6, they've got the Roosters. So it doesn't get any better. Like, it's a tough start to the year, and they can't rely on one player and having to play razzle-dazzle football back in here because their run home isn't as easy. We move on to the Raiders.
In the first half, though, before we do, in the first half,
they didn't rely. Jeremy.
I know. It was, 6-8 at halftime. And we were using Frizzell, we were using Leo Thompson, like we were running lines and we were crashing through. But then in the second half, we just went away from it. And that's where that guidance, that's where that ice in the game or staying in the fight comes into it. Didn't help that we had an injury. So we had Gagai on the wing and then Frizzell defending in centre. And then you have to hide 3 halves within the defensive line. I agree with you. Ponga played a good game, but teams now know that if you shut him down, you shut the Knights down. And you were saying this all last year, and it was surprising that people didn't catch on as we were on our 10 in a row. But now, all Canberra did was just shut down Ponga. As soon as he touched the ball, they were jamming him. Don't give him space. You give him space, he'll cut through. But it was so frustrating seeing that on a Thursday night. That was not how you want to start. And it can look grim, and it looks like if we don't sort stuff out, we could be 0-4.
I just want to touch on one more thing because I've just sent Beck out to get some bacon for the bacon eggs. We're going to have for breakfast tomorrow when I pick up the eggs off my front grass and car today tomorrow morning. But I don't think Newcastle score their first try if Hudson Young isn't off the field. Like, fair play to them, but they played against 12 men and only looked like scoring once, and they ran a short line where Hudson Young would have defended when you had Ethan Strange defending next to, it doesn't matter who was defending next to, without his second rower to protect him. So it was obviously, pretty smart, but like I said, I really don't think Newcastle looked like scoring till the back end of the game. I thought, credit where credit's due, I thought Pierce Paul was good when he come on. He ran a bit sideways, but he did look dangerous, but it come from no structure. Like the one time they ran structure, Hastings went straight through and scored because Hosking went straight across to him, obviously looking to help his halfback out there.
Look, let's get off the Newcastle Knights. I feel for Jez. I do. He looks absolutely defeated if you're watching on the YouTube. I want to say one more positive about Tyson Frizzell that I was absolutely frothing when I was watching. His kick chase is next level. His effort plays, I thought he was just switched on. He would literally go back and watch it, guys. This little effort is what makes him the quality player that he is. On the last tackle, he times it. So he actually gets a run up. He's at full speed by the time the kicker has kicked the ball, and he's straight down there right in the guy's face. And that is the stuff you can't coach. That is just effort players and wanting it. He clearly wanted it. It was unfortunate there was some players on the field that seemed like, and it's probably not the case, but just seemed like they didn't want it as much as what, say, your Tyson Frizzell or your Dane Gay guys did want it on Thursday night. Let's go talk about the Raiders quickly because I think they deserve some hype. And look, it's one thing about the Raiders for this game. They had, 5 to 6 months to just froth on what happened in the finals. They got to verse a team that kicked them out, and that is exactly what you want, as probably Ricky Stewart wanted. As soon as he saw round one and knew it was against the Newcastle Knights, he thought, my work is easy here. My work's done. I know how to get the boys up for it. It's the same venue. It's everything. We're just going to get in their face. We're going to smash them. We're going to get him in a dogfight. And that's exactly what happens. And it's just unfortunate, as I already mentioned, it didn't seem like the Knights wanted the dogfight, which I think they underestimated their own forward pack in a way, because I think the Knights forward pack, if you get them going, like Leo Thompson, for instance, I thought was very, very quiet. And I've actually tipped him for a huge year this year. Just get him a bit angry. He would have been toppling over a lot of those Raiders players, and he just wasn't sort of doing it. So credit to the Canberra Raiders. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. Special mention to Morgan Smithies from the Super League, which I personally didn't know much about. He is just a goer. He's a little bulldog. He does not stop.
He spent 90% of the game getting under Hastings' skin as well. I don't know if anyone else realized that too. But that was classic Pommy banter, because obviously he would have known Hastings from Hastings' time in the Super League. He got under his skin and put him off his game big time. Even to the point where Hastings scored that try, he threw the ball at him.
Yeah. They were at each other all night. The biggest point is that Canberra completed at 90%, where I think the Knights were somewhere around 60 or 50%. It was really, yeah, they iced it. Canberra look fit too. Like seeing them live, seeing them in person, they look fit. I think they've dropped some kilos all around their team, and they just looked fit and ready to go. So Ricky's definitely stuck it to them.
It's the milk diet.
And the thing is, the Raiders didn't actually look great. They just looked gritty. They just wanted to win. They were just going to make sure they would have won that 2 points to nil if they had to. They just literally wanted to go there, get the 2 points, get on the bus back up to back
That's
down
the Canberra
to
way,
Canberra.
though. That's how they play footy.
Yeah,
Always has
Thing
been.
is, I'm glad you said it because I've obviously tipped Canberra to have a pretty average year. What I saw
Me
off the
too.
weekend, I don't think they'll get the spoon now. I've got another team that's playing into favouritism there, but I still don't think they'll be playing finals football. I still think they'll be in the bottom. But like you said, they weren't that impressive. They just did the simple things. They didn't score great tries off structured football. Like it was unorthodox. There was a couple of questionable probably passes as well. They got away with, but they were controlled by a halfback playing against 5 halfbacks who, like, spoiler alert, because we're going to do this again, but he was my player of the round. I thought he was superb. His kicking game, he reminded me of an American punter the way he was kicking that ball. There was he didn't care where he put it. It was just as long as it was high and straight down the middle. Wasn't trying to kick it in the corners or anything. It was just, let's back our chase, get down there. Obviously, a huge risk to take with this new downtown rule as well, the way he was kicking that ball and the time he was taken. But I guess Newcastle probably could have put a bit of pressure on him, but he controlled that game perfectly and made it so easy for Strange, obviously, with his halves debut.
About 80% of his kicks were torpedo bombs. They were fantastic.
And they weren't the Burton bomb where he just puts them up for the sake of it. He was doing them with meaning and good placement and the like. He literally gave, sorry to say, but he gave the Newcastle Knights a bath in game management. Like if a Knights half, I'm watching that video back time and time again, as much as it's going to hurt, and I'm just going to watch what Fogarty does, and that is exactly all they need to do.
Yeah, and he exposed Marju as well, though. Like, we know how good Marju was last year. I've obviously highlighted some of Marju's faults over the years, watching him since he was a young player, but one of those kicks he put down, he found space, and like I said, Ponga was getting whacked every time he got the ball, and it was when you knew Canberra weren't going to lose the game at that point. Marju ran across the field, picked up the ball, and got absolutely whacked into the in-goal. He didn't really see the ball again after that. He didn't want it because they absolutely cracked him. So, like, it just shows how a bit of aggression can win a football game for you as well.
Yeah. Moving on. Before we do move on, I was thrown off. I should have done it, and you have mentioned now, Adam. We're going to mention our player of the round and team of the round. I should have went straight to it, but I was too keen to get Jez involved, and obviously the Knights being the first game, we just got a bit too excited there. So let's do that quickly now. I think Adam's raring to go with this. He shot to me straight away as soon as we got online, going, "Is this what we're doing?" I was like, "All right, let's do it." Adam, give me and Jez some time to think. You can give us yours.
Honourable mention. So it's a runner-up. So Bryce Cartwright, as I just touched on, obviously, guys, talking para podcast, those who listen to that, we've got a few crossovers, but it wasn't so much for an attack as obviously actually on the ball, but just his aggression in defence. Like, we know Cardi's someone who's struggled with his defence and struggled both off the field as well over the years, kind of, I guess, derailed his career for quite a while after he left Penrith, went to the Gold Coast, but defensively, he was absolutely brilliant. Being at the game and watching the solid hits he put on, I thought that was superb. But yeah, it's got to be Fogarty. Like I said, a lot of pressure on Canberra who weren't expected to do much, tipped to have a terrible year. I didn't think anybody else in the team was superb and stood out. And it's maybe what made him actually seem like the player of the game. But he taught the Knights 5 halves a lesson in game control.
He couldn't help himself. You got a team?
My team of the week, and this really is going to shock people. This is going to be very surprising. And I'll play the music as dun, 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 dun. It's the Undertaker's music, guys, because the streak continues. It's the Melbourne Storm. Melbourne Storm, and I'll obviously talk a bit more about them when we go to the preview, but it's the old-fashioned saying of defence wins football matches. In my time watching rugby league, and I didn't see all the game, but I definitely saw the last 25 minutes. I have never seen a better defensive performance than what they produced in that last 20, 25 minutes. And Penrith were throwing everything at him. You can't say Penrith weren't trying their asses off, and they just kept turning up for each other. So the good old saying of defence wins football matches, it's got them my team of the week.
I'll give Jez a little bit more time to think on this one. I'll go my player of the round. I'm giving it to Terrell Sloan, purely off the fact that I know the Titans were absolutely garbage, and we will get to the Gold Coast Titans and that game. I just thought the fact that, and I'll put my hand up already. There's a status out there on the page. I was a massive hater of Tyrell Sloan. I didn't want him in the team for round one. I thought Zach Lomax at fullback was their best option. But honestly, that's absolutely thrown. They've thrown water on my fire there, and huge credit to him. I thought he stood up, yes, against a weaker opposition, but you can only beat who's in front of you. And I thought he gave the Titans a bath. There was still a number of first grade players in that Titans team, and he just stood up. I think it's really good for his confidence, and hopefully he can just feed off this. There's a lot of people out there not sold on Flanagan yet, Shane Flanagan, the coach, but if that's what we're going to see from the Dragons a bit more, then I just tell you what, they're going to be a headache of a team to verse week in, week out. My team of the round, I can't go past the Melbourne Storm either. That was absolutely sensational. I was on the edge of my seat purely because I just wanted to finally get a tip right in this second part of round one and just get off the mark. And I thought surely Penrith here will come out and get a few tries late here. Storm must be out on their feet. There was cramping going on galore. I don't think there was one player in that 13 that didn't cramp up at some point in that last 15 minutes, but that was so tough. Everyone had cuts. Pappy had cuts, buddy. Everyone else had it. It was just sensational to watch, and it was really true rugby league round one footy. And we spoke about just before with the Raiders. They played a traditional sort of round one footy game. So did the Melbourne Storm. It was just clinical to watch. Jez, how about yours?
Can we give a shout out to Michael Martin, first of all, for changing his tip to the Penrith Panthers when he heard Cameron Munster was out?
I'm not sure about that. I don't reckon that's allowed. Can't change your tip.
He didn't.
He changed it from Melbourne to Penrith. Right? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He got it wrong.
He did get it wrong, but yeah. I didn't like that he did that after an admission of a player. Anyway, my player of the round, we're going to go all the way back to Vegas, and it's Ruben Garrick. So kicked 6 from 6, scored himself a meat pie. I love it when people, hit 100% conversion. So that was really good. I think kicking indoors helps a lot because they were all hitting them nice and true, even from the sideline. Didn't even look like missing all the goal kickers. So he is my player of the round. And
air conditioning.
Guys, I have to agree. It's the Melbourne Storm. That was insane. Like, for such a low scoring game, for everyone to come out battered and bruised, for them to hold their line, it was awesome. So, I agree with you guys. The Melbourne Storm is my team as well.
Well, before we get to that game, there is a game we have to get through, the Warriors versus the Cronulla Sharks. I just want to start this one by saying I have no idea how the Cronulla Sharks have won this game. I've written notes. I was watching all the games, written notes every time during the games, and I have no notes. If I was just reading the notes and didn't know the result, I would have thought the Warriors won this game by 10 or 12. Rusty affair, but they got it done. But it was the Cronulla Sharks who just somehow got it done. For the Warriors, it was a tale of two halves. I think what cruelled them in the end was not leading by more in the first half, and they let Cronulla score either side of half time, which gave them the momentum again, and they'll manage to get over the line. But like Talakai and Mulatalo were good. I thought Aiden Fanua-Blake was huge for the Warriors, especially his first stint. But the Warriors just couldn't do anything with it. Like, SJ's kicking game was sensational to start off with, but the second half they crumbled away. I could not believe it. I was watching that at halftime thinking the Warriors look so good. Like, they look out like their trial form. They're looking the most impressive team so far this year, and just completely fell away, which I think their coach and playing group, from all the hard work that they've done so far, will be really, really disappointed.
This is the Warriors. That's what I've come to expect. And I said it last week's preview show. First of all, I'll just highlight that the good thing at the start of the year is doing teams in alphabetical order on the ladder. It meant that the Warriors are actually outside the eights, while Cronulla had the opportunity to beat them. But this is what the Warriors have done. Like I said, I highlighted it the other day.
Brilliant.
The expectation of the Warriors performing is something they've struggled with over the years. Whenever they're meant to have a good year, I'm not saying their season's over. I'm not saying they're going to go bad. They'll get a good opportunity to bounce back in, I think, 3 weeks when the Knights travel over there. But they had the game. They should have been up by 30, like easily. They should have easily been up by 30 in that first probably 30 minutes of the game. And Like, Cronulla just dug deep and a few little things bounced the balls, went their way, and obviously ran away with the win. But I've just got some concerns for the Warriors. I just think they'll struggle with the expectation, as I already highlighted.
Just before Jez goes, you're on a warning now, Adam. There's no more pot shots allowed on this video about the Newcastle Knights. Jez is a defeated man.
Leave us alone.
I'd like him to stay on the video and maybe put a smile on his face at some point in this video. So just please, no more Knights fans. That is a warning.
Pick on someone else, will you?
Oh, it's coming.
Unbelievable.
Just remember, we only beat the Dogs.
When you look at the stats, when you look at the stats from this game, the Warriors are on top on nearly all of them. So even just watching the flow of the game, and I agree, I don't know how the Warriors weren't about 30 points up in that first half. The Sharks just stuck in there, and it was just pure grit and determination. And the Warriors just fell off, which, as Adam said, if they're expected to have a big year, they can't be doing that in games, especially against quality teams. Like, I don't call the Sharks a quality outfit, but they were able to overcome what was an onslaught of just a barrage of Warriors, and they were able to turn the tide in their favor and win that game. So, yeah, when you read those stats, you think, how the hell did the Sharks do that?
It was basically just the Sharks won the way you win round one games. We spoke about it already with the other two teams. It's just that gritty nature. They wanted to fight until the end of that game, and that's what ended up getting them over the line. As I said, there wasn't really any clear standouts. Like when I did my 3-2-1 for this game, it was really hard because, as I said, I thought Fanua Blake was probably the best player in the field, but I don't like giving my 3 point to the losing team. I think clearly there's a reason to give it to the team that won, but it was just so hard to find. I think the positive for the Sharks is they've finally won a game where Nico hasn't had to shine to get him the 2 points as well. I think that's a point to go home and write about, but that's about it. Let's go talk about the Melbourne Storm against the Penrith Panthers. We did speak about it already and gave the Melbourne Storm huge raps. Let's do it a bit more. That game was sensational stuff. To be honest, the first half was a bit meh. The second half really turned it up. I just think with the way that the game was flowing, it was great. I had thoughts to myself. The Vegas games looked far and away more impressive than I thought the rest of round one games did to a certain extent. And there's probably reasons for that. No wind in the stadium, the like. But this second half just turns it up. Yeah, the officiating where they just let them flow, let them run.
Actually, on the officiating, I thought the refereeing, there's a couple of bunker howlers, especially in today's games. I thought the refereeing, we don't give enough credit to him across the whole weekend, was actually pretty good. That's probably some of the best it's been.
There was a couple of forward passes that are still getting slipped through. Oh, yeah, but definitely 100%. when you're watching rugby league as a fan, you will take the officiating of the first two games over the rest of the round easily.
Yeah. They kind of let it flow on from that is what I'm saying, though. Like compared to where we were at round 27 last year, with obviously the last time we had the 8 games, I think it was a lot closer compared to those 2 games than what we see, say, Origin, for example, compared to round 27. But yes, back to the Melbourne game.
Back to the Melbourne game. And first of all, Melbourne Storm. That defense is just Craig Bellamy personified. He would have smashed them in the off-season, spoken about how key defense is, how it wins your premierships. And that, honestly, at times was just a brick wall. There was just no way, and this is the Penrith Panthers we're talking about, could not get through. And I think the last time they were held to 0 was, I think, 3 years ago or something, and it was against the Melbourne Storm as well. So crazy stats there, but it was sensational to watch from a Melbourne point of view. From the Penrith Panthers, I just think they looked, there's no way I'm writing them off at the moment. It's round one. It'd be absolutely silly to do that. They just sort of look like a team that other opposition is finally starting to work out some of the ways that they play. And for once, it looked like a team with no answers. And we've seen it, unfortunately, in the World Club Challenge as well, where Wigan basically, it was Wigan who they versed, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. I'm not just making that up. Yeah, Wigan just knew what they were going to get thrown at them, and they just defended it, and they kept defending it. It was just, yeah, I as a Para fan, I'm still worried about next week, but I've got no doubt with the Crichton loss, that's huge. With Lenu coming off the bench and what he used to do for Penrith, that was a lot. Special shout out to Talon May, who I thought looked pretty dangerous all night in that new center position. I thought he was really, really good. And to be fair, I thought Isaiah Yeo was really good as well in that middle. He chose his when to run and when to pass a lot better. I have been critical about that in the past. So there is some shining lights, not writing the Panthers off at all. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts there on that game.
Just looking through the stats, I'll quickly run through them. Penrith had 6 more sets and they completed 7 more sets than what obviously Melbourne had. Somehow Melbourne had more possession. But you look through the big ones like total runs and run meters. They ran for 330 more meters. They had more line breaks, more offloads, everything. Like it just shows how much Penrith did for Melbourne.
Defensively, Penrith are statistically way better than the Storm. Like we've just sat here and said how good defensively the Storm were, but statistically, the Panthers were well on top defensively.
They were 100%. And like, I guess the only thing that Melbourne beat them on was the want to win the game, which brings to my question, which I've kind of thrown around earlier in the previews of the season is how long can Penrith keep getting himself up for every game, every week with a target on their back? And that's the biggest concern for Penrith this year. Like, I said, Melbourne were hungry. We know they've got this streak that we talked about and stuff they wanted to protect. But by all rights, Penrith should have won that football game. You know, without Cameron Munster there, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, my best friend, out as well, and looking at the stats and stuff, Penrith should have won the football game, but Melbourne just seemed to want it more. So that is one of the concern areas, I think, for Penrith. Like, with a target on their back, achieving what they wanted to, which was 3 in a row, which no one done for quite a while. Like, it's not panic stations, obviously, for them because I think they started the last 4 years without winning their first round 1 game. They've obviously gone on to win the comp 3 of those times and grand final the other one. But still, like, I just don't know how they can get themselves up all the time anymore. It'd be, like, very emotionally hard to do.
Absolutely. I thought obviously with the AFL back and it being a Melbourne home game, the crowd was a little bit dismal as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed the story of Munster slipping over in the shower and doing his groin or whatever it was. They asked him, too much shampoo? He's like, yeah, too much Head and Shoulders. So all they need is for Munster to have a slip in the shower and they're good to go.
And the worrying thing for them is he doesn't sound confident about being back anytime soon either. He thinks it might be like a bit worse than.
Can you touch on that crowd quickly, Jeremy? With all the AFL obviously doing this round when they started in Sydney, I think the NRL really missed an opportunity to market that game. I know a lot of the time's been spent on Vegas and marketing Vegas, but you know that they could have really been. I know Amy Park's obviously a good venue, it wasn't full, but they really want to put some effort into that. They could have played it somewhere else and made it a big event and tried to highlight it with something special and got some entertainment or something to help Melbourne out because a massive opportunity was missed there, especially, you know, against Penrith.
Absolutely. Yep.
I agree. Moving on to the next game, it was the mighty Parramatta Eels versus the Canterbury Bulldogs. Para too good on the day, as you can tell by the big smiles on our faces, mine and Adam's. There we go. Got a little bit of a grin out of Jez as well. So it might be a little closet, bit of Parramatta blue and gold heart there. But
I had to listen to this game because I was driving to Foster Ton Curry. So I listened to the Triple M call, and I'll tell you my comments in a second.
Obviously, I think Parramatta were good. I'll fall short of saying great because of the opposition. And there was a couple of things in the games that I would have liked to have seen change. But it's round 1, and after how I've seen a lot of these teams playing round 1, I was quite happy as a supporter with how we have turned up and obviously had a big off season. We're speaking about values and how we're a team first mentality now. And I thought we did do that, which was good to see. I think the more talking point out of this game, though, is the Bulldogs. And it was it was hard to watch this as a neutral and just get both sides of the fence and my thoughts on it. But I managed to somehow do it miraculously just because of how bad the Bulldogs were. And it just made me scratch my head so much as to what have they actually done this offseason? Because to me, it looks like they've just had a group of utilities there and a group of players who can play multiple positions, spend a week each time playing different positions to see what works. They've got to round 1 and gone, holy shit, we don't know what our best team is. Like, there is no way in the world I've got Taff as a better player than Stephen Crichton. There is no way in the world I've got Salmon as a better lock than Curran. There's no way in the world I've got Hutchinson a better player than Toby Sexton. there's just too much going on there that I just scratch my head out and go, what is Serraldo and Phil Gould actually doing? There's a lot of shit that Phil Gould's telling us in the media about things that has to happen, but I think if you're a Bulldogs fan, you've got every right to start asking some serious questions now, because looking from the outside in, the recruitment has actually been a bit of a joke apart from Stephen Crichton, and they're not even playing him in the strongest position for that team.
Yeah, you
How
nailed
does
it.
your marquee player only have, what, about 3 carries or something ridiculous like that?
He
Like,
didn't
what-
want. That's not on anyway. He didn't want the ball. He was getting whacked every time he got it. Crichton's got to get himself involved in a way as well. And I highlight this in the Talking Para one. Will Penasini obviously marked up against Crichton. He didn't do anything special attack there. His job defensively was every time Crichton got that ball to whack him. And you could see he was fatigued at the end of the game by doing that. Just on the Bulldogs, I made friends with a Bulldogs fan sitting behind me. Spoke to him most of the game. And he summed this game up perfectly as a Bulldogs fan. And I'll give you his exact words. I'll quieten it down a little bit. His exact words
No,
were,
give us everything.
how the fuck?
I've got
No,
the swear
I'll just
button
say
ready.
this
Oh,
swearing.
damn it.
No. How the fuck do you sign a team of utilities? Yeah, they all mean to take up our key fucking positions, the useless seats. Those were his words. And I get it, because you've got Blake Taff, who played a lot of 14 at South Sydney. You've got Drew Hutchinson, who's played a lot of 14 at obviously the Roosters. You've got Jamin Semin, who played a lot of 14. Kurt Mann, I thought, was probably their best player on the field when he came on. I actually thought he played a really good game. So he rightfully deserved that 14 position. He's probably going to start at lock this weekend, because Semin was absolutely useless. But he's absolutely nailed everything he said there. They've got a bunch of 14s, utilities, and they've all found positions, yet there's better players for the position. Until they sort that, they're, not really going to sort themselves out, are they? Because they were fucking ordinary. Like, their forward pack got dominated and their halves are useless. I actually thought, I'll give a shout out, one more positive for the Bulldogs. I thought Curtis Moran, or Moran, whatever his name is, I thought he actually played a really solid game as well. I don't know what position he was meant to be playing, because it was hard to keep up with what they had out there. But if he's another utility, he was good.
I agree. And the other thing I don't
Bulldogs
want
got a
to...
couple of injuries as well. Sorry, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, just on Adam's point there with the 14s and from other players, the other stupid thing that Phil Gould has tried to sell the fans is they've recruited players from successful clubs. That's all well and good, but sorry to say, apart from Stephen Crichton, none of those players played vital roles in those teams. So it's not like you've gone ahead and purchased these stars from these teams and they're going to bring in this culture. They're not crucial players. They were lucky to play a handful of games each at those clubs, and they were literally lucky to play 10 to 15-minute spells. Okay, like I could go and train with the Penrith Panthers for a year. I'll go sign with the Bulldogs and I'm a premiership winning player. No, I played a role. I'm a role player, but I'm not a premiership winning player.
The other thing is, I just want to highlight quickly, because you've nailed that as well, but I think Serraldo just definitely firmed into being that first coach sacked, because, like you said, you don't know what they did in the offseason. I don't think they know what they did in the offseason as well. Like, there was nothing out there for them at all. Can we get back to Parramatta yet, though? Can we highlight Parramatta?
Not yet.
Hang on.
Not yet.
The
Go on,
Dogs
Jeremy.
are a
will
big
get there.
talking point.
Go on,
We'll get
Jeremy.
there.
What do you got?
So
What do you got?
listening to this game as we're driving along, and Triple M, I think it was 18-0 at halftime. 18-0? 14.
Yeah.
So they just said that the Bulldogs did not get off their own try line. They were defending. They got a few injuries, so they had to shift a few players around in different positions. But even they were just saying the same thing, like, how many more utilities can they fit into these spots? They said that there were people just playing out of position all across the board, and when they have their rightful spots, then they might be able to gel. Now, I'm going to switch over to Parramatta. So listening to that game, I think Mitchell Moses just proved again how vital he is to a very good team. And the Triple M call said that what Parramatta have finally done, and this is what we brought up, in previous podcasts, is around the number 9. And they said, I think they've finally found the number 9. So they experimented with, who was it last year?
Yeah.
Your favourite player?
Hudson.
Hudson.
And even the year
By
before, they
experimenting,
said,
it wasn't many games.
Yeah, well, it
What's
was.
the experiment?
They're throwing band-aids over a big gash wound is what they were doing. So now that they've finally got a 9, Clint Gutherson, I can't even say his name right. I don't like him that much. He is able to play his role. He's able to do it very well. And then you've got Brown and Moses firing. You guys keep that up. You're going to have one hell of a team. Your forwards sound like you just bent the line back. It was the Bulldogs, granted, but listening to that game live, it sounded pretty brutal through the effects mics as well. It sounded like they were really punching holes through. And the Cardi Party, ready to go.
Are you sure you weren't just listening to the Talking Para podcast? Because you've almost quoted me word for word there, what I said about
Did I?
Joey Lussick. Joey Lussick,
You
the
and
way he
Triple M.
played, he seemed to know when to give the ball to the halves, who deserves the things. But credit to Parramatta as well. If Moses doesn't get into 13 minutes in or whatever it was, Parramatta win that game by 40 easily because Moses was having one of those games and there's a couple of signs.
Yeah, he was doing it on one leg.
Doing it on one leg. And like we mentioned earlier, there's a bit of toughness from Moses the way he's going to play on. But he knew when to give the ball to the right people and they seemed a lot more set and structured. Keeping Gutherson away from our final touches for our backline plays is the best thing they can do. They had him at second receiver and allowed Mitch or Dylan to obviously have that final touch. But a lot of that comes from Lussick. The pass from Lussick to Cartwright was right in line with me. I still haven't, 27 hours later, I still haven't seen him pass that ball to him. Like, that was disguised perfectly. It was an absolute brilliant ball. I literally realised when he was putting the ball down that Cartwright had the ball under the post. So, yeah, Lussick was brilliant. I know how much Joel loves Lussick. He was bagging him out last year, so I must feel great to say. How good was Lussick, Joel?
Yeah, no, Lussick had a good game. Credit where credit is due.
Morgan Harper, try on debut.
Oh, this is closer to the Dalium Centre of the Year, isn't he?
No, credit to him. I thought he was great as well, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself or ourselves because it was the Bulldogs. Granted, we probably made them play a bit worse than they did because of our pressure. I don't think teams get enough credit for that when they.
We're also in cruise control though. Like we're in cruise, you could see. And Lane come out and said on the footy show this morning, like we worked on completing our sets and doing the things right that we did wrong last year, not giving away the cheap penalties. Like I said, we only made 5 errors and 2 of them in the last 10 minutes on a hot day and a physical game. So it shows, there was all this talk in the off season. Like a lot of people probably watched the Paradise podcast, not Paradise podcast, Paradise Project Paradise thing they did where they went away and had their camp about connecting with each other, all the mumbo jumbo we see every team do. But for once, actually looks to seem like it has worked because, like, I know it's only round 1, but they did what they said they were going to do on the field. And that's probably the thing I was most impressed with.
Yeah, and
do you reckon Mitch's injury is significant, or do you think he'll be right to go next round?
A little bit concerning. It's not ideal, but
it was a groin strain. He looked better by the end of the game. You could see him bouncing around a bit more in defence. One of those ones in a tackle where you see him do a little bit of splits, and you'd know this from playing soccer. When you kick a ball too many times, if you have a little twinge in that groin, obviously it can go. So, yeah, I think they'll probably dry needle. It would have been dry needle today and a bit of ice recovery, and you think he'll be fine to go. But I think he proved as well that he can be on the field and direct him around without actually touching ball. I want to say one more positive, not about Parramatta. The last 2 times that Reed's played against Parramatta, he's let the moment get to him. There was an early sign 2.5 minutes in when Blake Taft dropped the ball and him and Reg were almost about to swing punches at each other. But I actually thought Reed probably played one of his best games in a Bulldogs jersey in a beaten team. Didn't let shit get to him. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him this year with the halves they've got. So he needs to obviously back that up.
Yeah, Triple M echoed that as well, Adam. They said that he was probably the best player in a defeated side. So well done.
Moving on from that game, before I do, I just want to quickly address, I've seen a comment today, a quote from Gordon Tallis, who said he's not too sure what the worries are about for the Bulldogs. He actually thought they were quite good. I'm sorry, Gordy. I love listening to you, watching you, about your opinion, but I don't know what Vegas has done to you, but you need to go and sober up or something, because I'll say this now about the Bulldogs. It was arguably their worst performance since they got rid of Dean Pay, and a lot's been done since then. Arguably, Dean Pay's side was a lot more worse off than what this current roster is, and if they're going to produce that first week of a brand new season, then there is huge concern there for the Canterbury Bulldogs. They just did not look like they wanted to be there. They didn't look like they knew each other. It was just very, very concerning. But going from one very ordinary team to another, the Gold Coast Titans versus the St. George Illawarra Dragons, goodness me, the segue was perfect there. I'll give myself a wrap. Again, I want to talk about how good the Dragons were, but first, the Gold Coast Titans, that was pure dog shit. Sorry to say it.
Hang on. Aren't they your second team? You were expecting big things from the Gold Coast Titans. You did.
I don't have a second team.
Jeremy, can you comment on this? He was a bit on the Gold Coast, wasn't he? All off season.
He was very much on the Gold Coast. I think we can even run the tapes back and we'll hear him say it himself.
First of all, I want to give a big shout out. First of all, not to you, Joel, because you're on the Gold Coast. I want to give a big shout out to the 10 Gold Coast fans that turned up, because I can't quote this, but I believe Joel quoted, "Something is growing at the Gold Coast. They're starting to get behind a bit better. They're going somewhere." I don't know what the crowd figure was, but I saw a lot of fucking red and white in that crowd. I heard a lot of Dragons chants as well, and I didn't see a lot of Gold Coast fans.
The grass is growing.
Oh, the grass is going. Well, they shouldn't mow
the
that.
Grass at the stadium's growing.
You're being a bit
Maybe
harsh.
you're talking about the Gold Coast Suns, because they had a good win.
They had a great win. Yeah, he got crossed, but Still loves his AFL, as you can tell. They had no Four and no Fafita and no Campbell, so it will get better for the Gold Coast. But I told you, after watching those trials, I'm not saying St. George are going to win the comp, but like they're pushing, they're getting. I'll say this, and it could come back to bite me after what you said last week, but there's something growing at St. George. There's something happening.
You just wanted to say that so a curse was put on them. I know you.
Look, you did mention the 3 players that were out. I mean, that's fair enough. But sorry to say, if you're a first grade team, everyone's going to have injuries throughout the year, no matter what. They had a halfback there who's supposed to be their first choice halfback in Tana Boyd, who I don't think is first grade standard from what he's shown so far. Sorry to be harsh, but without Foran there, he really lacked anything there. I felt sorry for Tommy Weaver, who I actually thought looked half decent in patches for the Titans. He played 5'8". I would be putting him at halfback, and hopefully Foran's fit for him in 2 weeks' time. I got the bye next week, which hasn't that come at a very good time after getting that shellacking. You never want the early bye, but I think the Titans are loving the fact that they've got one now. Just their defense, like they got a number of first grade players there still, and their defense, their attack, was non-existent. They looked like a park football team, and it's just got to be said. Like, I don't want to be too harsh on a round 1 result, but we're harsh on the Bulldogs. The Titans are in the same boat. I would hate to see the Titans versus the Bulldogs game at the moment. I think that's in round 3, because we could be on for a 0-all scoreline or 100 to 100 scoreline. Like,
yeah, 58, 50 all.
Oh, Toyota Cup score ones. How good were they?
Yeah, no defense. But this is what I was saying a couple of weeks ago. Like, Des isn't going to go in there and create miracles straight away. And I think they copped an absolute bucket of spray. They were sat in a little semicircle with Des in the middle there, and they weren't allowed to leave for about 25 minutes. They got an absolute rinse down. So I think they're in for a very long week, but it's going to take some time for the Des factor to kick in. And yeah, I had the Titans low anyway. And today, I know it's only round 1, and we keep saying that, but next week it'll only be round 2, round 3, so on. I don't see where the improvement's coming when it comes to the Titans.
Yeah, they've got a tough game against the bye next week, so we'll see what they do there. The Dragons, I thought they were really, really good. Tyrell Sloan, I've already given a shout out to. I want to give a shout out as well to Little at dummy half, who I thought played a tremendous game. There's been a lot of talk about him getting close to 80 minutes this year, which looked like the case if this game's anything to go off. And I thought he controlled things really, really well. Kyle Flanagan worked well with Ben Hunt. That was a really good combination. Zach Lomax, even though he still didn't look happy throughout the game at times, he still didn't look like a guy that wants to be there, still produced. Sully as well was really, really good. Like, there's some really positive signs there for the Dragons.
Did him and Ben Hunt change shorts like in the off-season or something? Because Ben Hunt looked happy as anything, and Lomax looked like he was moping around. Like, just while we're talking about that, I saw they come out today, and it was a very interesting statement that said Zach won't be getting released this year. He won't be going anywhere until 2025. I know he's on a contract for 2025. But we'll address it with his management after round 4. Now, they're obviously trying to sign, I don't know his name, the bloke from the Wallabies, the centre from the Wallabies.
Oh, yeah, I forget. I don't
played
know
20
anything about rugby.
Yeah, I hate the sport. It's honestly, if it's a game they play in heaven, send me to hell.
Does Rugby
um,
Australia still exist?
Yeah, 100%. It's still a thing.
Oh,
So I know they're
the
chasing
Waratahs.
him. So obviously, by the fact they're chasing him, means they're prepared if they get him to let Lomax go. You would think what they're saying. It doesn't seem like they're going to let this one drag on like they did the Ben Hunt, even though it looks like they've got a good scenario. But to Lomax's credit, 26 runs, 266 meters.
It was good.
We've seen players want out of clubs before, e.g. Bevan French, go and touch the ball twice and run for 17 meters and not make any effort. He went out there and proved a point and made himself, if he is going to move on to another club, a very valued player still.
He's taken a leaf out of Ben Hunt's book. Like last year, there was all the drama around Ben Hunt and his contract, but he still played like an absolute madman every week. So Zach Lomax, I dare say that is a Ben Hunt sort of rub-off. He's gone out there and gone, you know what? I'm just going to let my footy do the talking. And it did. I found it really funny when Ben Hunt dropped the kickoff. The commentator straight away was like, "Oh, we're back to 2015 or whatever it was." That was so funny. I couldn't help it.
He's had a hunt of them. I actually heard what happened.
And he
Jeremy,
even
you
laughed
touched on
at
it. Yeah, they, I believe, and this is only a rumor, I believe Ben Hunt and Zach Lomax may have had a barbecue and solved all the issues there. Like I can't confirm it, but I believe that's what happened. We know barbecue.
Who else was invited?
Yeah, I think that might have been it. But they're the only two that won't turn up. He'll turn up the presentation night as well, of course. But they said there's no presentation night to be a barbecue. Done. Solved.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing for Zach Lomax is after that game, he's actually made himself look like a really good winger. And his argument is he's a centre still. And he just absolutely played the house down on the weekend. And I would hate to see him go back to centre at the moment because he was so good there. Last thing for the Titans,
Zach.
and I wrote this point down. Yeah, I wrote this point down, and I just want to say they kept doing their short dropouts to Zach Lomax, the best player in the game at high balls. I'm sorry, but what are your halfbacks doing? Kick it the other bloody side. Every single short dropout went to Zach Lomax. You guys have rocks in your head. Seriously, get out there, game manage. Oh, seriously. Anyway, last game of the round because
I want to see more just on footy. We saw it in one of the trials. I don't know who it was. I want to see more onside dropout kicks, like I can say onside kick like NFL, where they grubber it for the dropout because
down the middle.
Either way,
down the middle.
Yep. Same result. Like it's going to be a lot harder. It's a lot harder to pick up a bouncing ball than it is a high ball. We're obviously seeing the players get better at catching the high balls and jumping expectation of it. If you chuck in like a very low-driven grubber dropout, it's going to be a lot harder to take. There's more chance of getting the ball. I think we'll see it come in once one team does it because either way, it's the same result. If it doesn't go 10 or whatever, it's just going to be the play the ball, not the penalty now.
I'm surprised teams don't drive it towards the sideline in a grubber fashion.
That's what
there are many times where the players are so far back or they're set up for the short drop. Like, grubber it for the sideline.
If the ball goes out in the full, is it still a penalty or not?
No, it's a tap. That's happened in the Knights game. As a play the ball.
I knew obviously we didn't go 10, but I didn't know. So if I drive a ball 50 meters, so you're right, Jeremy, that's perfect. Like try and drive it towards the side. If it goes out the full, so what? It's the same result. Special teams. We're getting the special teams coming on soon for sure.
I have been the biggest advocate for having just a kicker come on because I hate tackling and I don't like getting tackled, but I can kick. So let's bring it in.
Oh, maybe the Knights could play Cogger as their kicker, and that's it. So.
We've got about 7 to choose from.
Dolphins versus the Cowboys. The Dolphins just look like the most unfit side in the competition. I don't know what the hell they did in this off-season, but they clearly just sat around drinking, eating, listening to Wayne Bennett tell some stories about his rugby league career or something because sorry to say, Finns fans, they did not look like they have been training at all. The hammer, if I was the coach, I would have hooked him after that try to Lukey, how he did the little kick for himself and just popped out. I don't know what the hell you're thinking. Any other fullback in the competition, even Tyrell Sloan, would just jump on it and take the hit. I don't know what the hell you're doing, mate, but if I was Wayne Bennett, I would have dropped him. I would have said, you're hooked. See you later. That is not what we stand for here. The fact you kept him on, he was playing dog shit anyway. Dolphins, They could be a smoky for the wooden spoon.
Yeah,
I think Michael summed it up pretty well, Adam, with his fins down. There was nothing around about the Dolphins' performance today. Fins down.
You're right. It's you just mentioned it, Joel. I said earlier I had Canberra for the spoon. I've got the Dolphins for the spoon now, which is going to be sad to see a team that I gave the NRL, they gave the NRL such excitement. I guess they're kind of everyone's second team for a little bit last year. Obviously coming in, they weren't expected to win a game last year, and they obviously went a pretty good run and finished in that mid-table kind of area. But I was actually trying to find a wooden spoon in my drawer, and I couldn't find one. All I've got is this rubber red spoon because it's safer for the pots and stuff. But anyway, so I was going to actually come and do the earliest presentation for a wooden spoon ever. And it's between the Dolphins, I feel, and another team I can't mention because I'll get kicked off the podcast.
Well, the rubber red one will go perfect for both of those teams at the moment.
100%. Yeah.
Shout out to Val Holmes, 7 from 7. Love it.
And another shout out: the first half field goal didn't come back to haunt him.
Yes, I do love a first half field goal voodoo.
And he wanted the 2 point. He wanted the 2-pointer too. He had that 2-pointer set up the whole time. And they made a half break. So
the Dolphins' middle defense was a huge concern for mine. They just were leaking like a sieve. It was ridiculous. And that's, I guess, their concern now with an aging forward pack. Last year, the inaugural season, they could play off emotion. Now they don't have that. They're 34, 35-year-olds. Their body's hurting. They just don't seem to have the drive. And you can't knock them. They've achieved so much. Like Jesse Bromwich, for instance, has achieved so much in his career. It just must get to the point where he's just going, mate, this is too hard.
It's the new retirement home, is what it is. It used to be at the Knights. We used to get everyone coming in and retire them out, but now it looks like it's going to be the Dolphins that everyone goes to have a nice life up at the sunny coast.
Don't worry, Para had a chance there. Shout out Paul Fadawira.
Oh, there's a lot.
Carl Webb.
Rest in peace, Carl Webb. But
rest in peace, obviously. Yeah.
Anthony Watmow. There was quite a few that we all go through that stage, but.
We had Craig Gower.
Chris Hicks. Chris Hicks. Does the list go on?
We could do a whole podcast on this.
Retirement home. We'll have to do one. The retirement home.
Yeah.
Shout out to Willie Tonga as well on his return to Parramatta. But I want to talk about the Cowboys because it's a team we don't know what to expect. We've obviously all had them sliding. I don't think they were wonderful because, as Joel touched on, that Dolphins team. That Dolphins team was that weak through the middle. Honestly, I can't use what I was going to use to describe it.
The Dogs would have scored 3 or 4 on them. That's saying something.
It was bad. It was piss poor. And there was times where you watch them run through, and you could see them arguing with each other and looking at each other, going, "What the fuck are you doing? Make an effort!" Because it just wasn't the effort. Well, I sound like Brad Arthur, but the effort wasn't there. There was no effort. And the Cowboys, there's nothing special about them either. They were just, it was like a trial run. Because honestly, I think they showed a bit of respect for Queensland team and didn't put 50 points on them on purpose because they didn't want to end their season.
The list was ready.
The list was ready, yeah, but they probably didn't want to show off, and they didn't have to. To their credit, they didn't want to show off too many what they've worked on and their set moves and their structure in the off season because it was that simple to score tries.
And you can't do that at a Queensland versus Queensland at Suncorp.
Shout out.
Take the foot off the pedal a little bit.
There's a lot of shout outs. There's a lot of shout outs today, but shout out to 32,300 people that turned up to that game, which is probably another time to mention how good the NRL crowds have been this round. 32,000. I said they should have played the game, but 32,000 is huge. Nearly 30,000 at Parramatta, 23,000 at Newcastle. Obviously, the Warriors crowd was majorly sold out. The St George fans turned up in force for the Gold Coast game. And the only other game, obviously, was the Melbourne game, which we probably was disappointing, but it was probably a good crowd for Melbourne. So, massive crowd to start off round one.
Round one. We're all loving
that. Last shout out to Zach Labour, the centre for the Cowboys, who I thought was extraordinary today. He's a young talent, guys. I know a lot of people probably don't know about him, but this honestly could be something that we see week in, week out from him. He is that good of a player. I can't wait to see him this year.
Is it Kyle Labour relative or?
I think they're brothers. I'm pretty sure they're brothers.
They're both P&G internationals too, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're brothers.
Laybutts.
That
Last one.
that dummy flick was incredible, may I add.
Oh, bro.
Like
At speed to do that is so hard.
Yeah, I would have let go of the ball for sure. I would have dummied it and let go of it. Hammer under the post. Would have changed Hammer's day early on. He would have had a blind of a game after that.
The last one, boys, I want to talk on this game in the podcast was that penalty try. I don't know, Jez, you may not have seen it because you were on the road. Adam, I think you may have seen it. Yeah. I don't know. Like, we've given credit to the referees. The video referee still behind the bunker has a bit to answer to, because if that is a penalty try, I'm sorry, we're going to start seeing penalty tries given 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it's going to get pretty ridiculous.
She had a shocker, and like I said, the referee's been great, but the bunker, there's a couple of things she got wrong in this game. I thought the try at the end to Kyle Felt was very similar to the Morgan Harper one yesterday, which was given a try.
Yeah.
I was given no try in this game. So, like I said, as fans, all we want is consistency in the game, but I didn't think she had a great game. Look, by the letter of the law, a penalty try needs to be, they say, and the commentators got this wrong, there's no uncertain thing. I believe they're having bunker issues, but it actually never come up on the big screen either. It was a try and stuff. Obviously, you couldn't hear her talking. What it needs to be is there needs to be a guarantee he'll be the first person on the ball with no one else around. Now, technically, there was no one else around, so he could have had time to potentially turn and get the ball if the push wasn't there. But the ball had obviously taken that 90-degree hook. The ball hadn't taken the 90-degree hook when the contact was first made with the push. So there's a lot of arguments around for both teams if it would have made the 90-degree hook, if he would have got there before. I personally would have said penalty 10 in the bin, professional foul. I don't think you can guarantee a penalty try, but I guess the benefit of this one is it wasn't a decision that affected the game, and it's not what we're talking about, and it didn't happen in Vegas, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas as well, so we wouldn't have been talking about it.
Apart from if you're Spencer Lenu. Anyway.
Before we go on, there was something in the Parramatta game. So it went all the way back to the other end of the field during the video ref. Like there was a try given or a penalty given, and that went all the way back. What was that? That
was the try. The guy was just had his foot on the dead ball line, so it was technically a dead ball. It was a right call. There was no disputing that.
And it was all one play. There was no play of the balls. No. So we put a kick through. Bobby Simonson hit it back, but it brushed Kurtman's shoulder as his foot was out. They ran the ball at the field. We stripped it, used our back line, scored. So it was a long passage of play, but it was one passage.
Right. Okay.
And it was the right call. So
it was the right call. Yeah.
Okay. Cool beans.
It was a fucking
good
work,
try
Bunker.
You did. Yeah, it was. It would have been arguably the try of the season so far. So
listening to it, it sounded very exciting.
It was. That's all we've got time for, guys. We'll wrap it up there. Special shout out to Jez, the MVP. He's come home, literally just jumped straight onto the pod. We've gone a little bit overtime for him. We have tried to get this lower, but I think round one, we're all excited. We've spoken some footy. So, Jez, shout out to your MVP.
Can we ask him one more question?
Go for it.
Before we go. Can we have the final say? Jeremy, do you feel like this was like a counselling session in a way, and you feel better for coming on and talking about football?
Well, we already had our debrief at 8 o'clock Friday morning when I was driving to work.
Safe place among friends, so you feel better now? Because you're not as red, I noticed.
Yeah, my sunburn's kind of sinking in, I guess. Nah, bring on next week. We'll be back.
It's only round one.
Bring it on. We'll be there Wednesday for the show as well. Obviously, guys, live show. Get around Facebook, YouTube if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, and we will see you then.